So I'm going to respond to someone on Threads who asked me what's stopping the Trump administration from going to Kilmar Abrego's house on Monday and arresting him and promptly deporting him to Uganda, as was reported by Yahoo and various different news outlets who shared a leaked letter that was sent to Kilmar Abrego's lawyer. So here's what's stopping them. Unlike the cases you've seen when they've been rapidly taking people, denying them of their due process rights, barely giving them access to a lawyer or letting them know they can have a lawyer, putting bogus allegations, not even in their native language, in front of them, and based on that, just summarily kicking them out the country and deporting them, violating their rights. That's wise, because they don't have lawyers. They don't have eyes on them. And even, but once you have a lawyer, because there's a process. When they get deported, there's paperwork that follows them. They can't just deport him without a final order of deportation. And the proceedings that you might have seen and the letter that says, you're going to start removal proceedings. Removal proceedings is a process. The process includes them presenting evidence for what's the basis for him to be removed. At that point, Kilmar Abrego Garcia could then say that I am going to adjust status because my wife is a U.S. citizen. If you're adjusting status, if all things fine and gravy, you've been determined already from a previous immigration judge that you're no threat to society, you can stay while you're adjusting status and don't be removed. Nothing wrong with that. Now, the Trump administration is going to say, well, he's a gang member, but they don't have any evidence. Since 2017, they've proved no evidence. Kilmar Abrego Garcia actually went to CCOT. He said in his documents, again, my name is JJ Legal, I'm in the dockets. One of the documents that he submitted a letter where he declared that when he first got to CCOT, they divided up and removed all the gang members and put them in one cell because they're dangerous, and put the people who aren't gang members in a separate cell. Kilmar was in the non-gang cells. They looked at all his tattoos. They said, okay, no gang tattoos. These are experts, because these prison guards, including the senior prison guards, they know gang tattoos. I trust them before I trust Donald Trump, Pam Blondie, Christy Nome. They don't know nothing. They're just racist people. As far as they're concerned, the guy with the autism speaks tattoo, the gay hairdresser, bullshit. So they don't have any basis for anything. So once he proves that he's not a gang member, he's not a threat, the prosecution, he's right now, by the way, he's asking, Kilmar Abrego Garcia's lawyers is asking throughout that lawsuit. They said the indictment, the prosecution in Tennessee, his lawyers declared that it's malicious prosecution. Shout out to Michael Popak and his team. I watch them all the time, and they said, because he's a trial lawyer, he says really hard to win a malicious prosecution case. But every single time, Pam Bondi, Christy Nome, Tristan McLaughlin, Tom Homan, Donald Trump, all those people pop off on Fox News and social media, they're helping the case. They're essentially making it easier for the judge to say, yeah, you're being maliciously prosecuted. The only reason they prosecuted is because they needed to bring him back. Judge Paula Zenas in District Court of Maryland, the Federal District Court in Maryland, had told them to bring him back. United States Supreme Court, all 9 justices said, bring that man back and give him his process. Let him defend himself against the allegations. And they didn't want to do it. They want to eat crow. So they made up this prosecution and said, yeah. The magistrate judge that let Kilmar Abrego go, Judge Holmes, she looked at the evidence. She said, you're telling me you got these jailbirds. One guy is actually a trafficker himself. The other guy has been deported multiple times. And all these guys have incentives to just lie. And Kilmar, there's nothing to prove that this guy's a flight risk. Everyone's watching him. He can get out of jail. Then you have Judge Crenshaw, similar, was like, okay, yeah, he can go to Maryland and wait for his trial. So while he's in Maryland, his lawyers are saying this is malicious. And look what they're saying about me on social media, proof that this is malicious prosecution. They're just mad because they had to bring me back. And after they finished saying he ain't coming back and popping off and neck thingy and and so they're just mad. And so they prosecute me because they're mad. They have no evidence. The human and it's human smuggling, by the way, not human trafficking, is because he was driving some people to work and he had an expired license. All of a sudden that went from that to he's a child predator. They're committing defamation. They don't see what happened when Rudy Giuliani defamed those 2 election workers and he's losing his house. Christine Holmes, she barely has a home herself. Do y'all not know that this guy, when Donald Trump is done and gone, that he can actually file a defamation lawsuit every time y'all say he's a gang member, he's an MS-13, he's a violent trafficker, he's a this, he's a that. All the time y'all pop off and say that, talk about he's emphatically destroying his reputation with all the platform you guys have, putting his life at risk, that's defamatory. I don't understand. What the fuck? Anyway, I digress. Get my I digress merch at jjlegal.com. That's why I got this hat. I'm going to get each one, teach one caps and shirts too. Anyway, I digress. So, he has lawyers. He has eyes on him. He has those 3 judges. Paul Azinas, the District Court of Maryland. He has the magistrate judge that let him go. And then he has the Judge Crenshaw that are looking at his case. And then he has filing process. They're not going to have any evidence to prove it. They're going to have any evidence to say that he shouldn't be able to stay in the country, adjust status with his wife and kids. They say they're pro-life, pro-family, but they're deporting babies. They're deporting babies with cancer. A 2-year-old with cancer they deported. A U.S. citizen. Oh, they're deporting U.S. citizen children. They are so cruel. And pro-family, my ass, are not Christian. And cruelty is the point. And they're little ravenous, rabid MAGA people who pathetic, have terrible lives, and their only joy in their life is knowing that people are being punished, and they just find joy in people being disrupted and uprooted who doing nothing but minding their business. Like Kilmar, just minding his business, living his life comfortably. So he's gonna be able to prove from his family, his neighbors, his co-workers that he did get in a couple scuffles. Domestic violence is serious. She forgave him. But he wasn't prosecuted. He has no criminal record. There's going to be no evidence for the most part. I can't attest personally because I don't know the man. But from what I've seen, if they had evidence, they would have presented it. They had this traffic stop that they tried to turn into a human smuggling thing. They don't have any evidence. So without evidence, when they present it to the immigration judge, the immigration judge has any sense, they'll be like, all right, get out of here. If, let's say, the immigration judge says, buckles and say, okay, yeah, he should be removed, he can then appeal and then appeal to the next level. But they have nothing. What all this is, again, is just media. They just got mad, got egg on their face. People are laughing at them, and they don't want to be laughed at. So that's what they have. They have the ability to say that we're going to deport him, but they're just saying it. Like, if you follow me, a lot of the things they say, Donald Trump said he's going to change the Smithsonian and he's going to do all this stuff. He just comes up with crazy ideas. When Kamala Harris said that Donald Trump without guardrails, this is what it is. Because his first term, he had people who had some sense. He had people who were willing to stand up to him and say no. Bill Barr was like, you can't do that. You know what I mean? The General Mattis was like, But these folks he has, Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem, they're unqualified for their jobs. They're lucky to be there. So when Donald Trump says whatever, he's essentially running the Department of Justice. He's running the Department of Homeland Security. Him and Stephen Miller, little crazy asses. They stupid. Both of them don't know nothing. And then so that's what's going on. That's why it's just like they go to court, the Department of Justice, and you see Pam Bondi, she just filed lawsuits against a baker. She just has no sense whatsoever. I don't think she cares. I imagine she doesn't ever plan to practice law again when she's finished, because she's just doing all sorts of bullshit. Anyway, I digress. Back to the point. So there's nothing stopping them from trying, but I would say, because I watch the dockets, I do know when the judge tells them to follow process, they do it. For example, when they were trying to send those they're trying to deport some criminal immigrants, migrants, who to South Sudan, a judge, what's his face? McFadden, I forget his last name, I think it's McFadden, told them, you have to give these guys process, let them have a lawyer, give them a right to say why they shouldn't be sent to South Sudan. So the Trump administration creates some little containers and actually watch them, and they had a process so they can defend themselves. So that was real criminal. Those are people who had convictions. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia doesn't have any criminal conviction. He's entitled to be able to defend himself. And if they don't have any case, it's going to lose. They're just counting on people forgetting about it and then quietly going outside the news stream, and you're just not following. But you follow me. I'm JJ Legal. I'm in the dockets. Each one teach one. Share this news. Share this video. Let everybody knows. The more people, the better. That's my job, is to help you have a little sense of calm. And just, one day at a time, because a lot of stuff they do because people don't know their rights, and then they just don't know, and they don't follow up, and so they're just trying to scare you, and that's part of it. So the more that you're scared, the more that you don't know and just feel like they can do all sorts of stuff, the better for them. They need people to give up. They need people to say, oh, I've seen so many people just defeated, like, yeah, I guess this is it, this is our life now. And that they win when they do that. But I tell you, they're a mess. It's a chaotic mess. It's not coordinated. We would be in bigger trouble if they were actually coordinated. They're not coordinated. It's a clown show, I tell you. And so they're dangerous. I'm not saying they're not dangerous, but it's still a clown show. Each one teach one. JJ Legal. Share this video. Peace out. Watch this. You're watching this on YouTube.